This video is sponsored by Strawberry.me. More about them in a bit.
Where's my fucking money, motherfucker? Where's my money? Where's my money? I got this bracelet. Where's my money? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Doc, motherfucker. You say VVS, I3, 14 karat, and you're using my name, you little you
This influencer and New York City jeweler found out that a competitor was allegedly stealing his clients and fraudulently selling them subpar products, all while pretending to be affiliated with him. And when he went to confront them, a brawl broke out. But now, not only were these other guys arrested for, at the very least, battery against him, but it looks like he's about to take this to civil litigation as well.
So, Akay, for spitting in my face, for strangling me, I'm gonna make you an example for the world for greed, bro. Learn how to share the money and let it go. Whatever I get from Akay, thanks to Bradford Cohen, I'm gonna share. I know how to share money, okay? Because money's not my god. Do you understand that?
So in this video, we're going to talk about all the juicy things that TraxNYC can sue his competitor, Akay Diamonds, for. Let's get into it. TraxNYC is the social media name for Maksud or Max Agajani. For purposes of this conversation though, I'll refer to him as TraxNYC. Anyway, TraxNYC has a huge following. We're talking around 8 to 9 million subscribers / followers across his socials, most notably YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And he's known for a number of things. For one, the company TraxNYC is one of the largest, most visible independent jewelers in New York City's infamous Diamond District on West 47th Street. They make custom jewelry of all types, and they're also known for their competitive pricing and objectively high technical specifications of these pieces, which can be independently verified. This is something that is actually very important to understand because the Diamond District doesn't exactly have the greatest reputation for being a particularly, let's say, upstanding business industry. But Max from TraxNYC has made a unique name for himself in the Diamond District by creating a wealth of consumer trust on social media. In his videos, he not only gives behind the scenes content to sort of pull back the curtain on the Diamond District, but he also makes content where he does things like tour Africa's controversial diamond mines, and he does wild things like make and test diamond-tipped bullets. And he is definitely not shy about getting into confrontations with other dealers and business transactors when he feels like he or his customer has been somehow cheated by the other side.
Don't feel bad for me, Scott. Feel bad for yourself. You thought you were gonna come some over here and a free bracelet? Guess again. Should've left those stories up. I gave you an out. But you didn't take it. Now, I don't want to hear your mouth. Shut the up, bro.
Scott, you soft guess what? With this little right here. Because one of us is a real piece of shit, apparently. I'm gonna tell you what a soft she is, because I know what the I'm doing.
You see these two motherfucking pieces of shit right here? These cop suckers! Yo, why did you me on my gold at 55% when it's supposed to be 58, bro? Tell the world how much you stole!
So basically all of this is added up to someone who has developed a reputation over the years for being someone who sells quality jewelry at fair prices and who is authentic and has a strong sense of justice for the consumer. This is basically everything a business can ask for in terms of goodwill. Anyway, so then you have George and Freddie Akay, the guys that run Akay Diamonds. Akay Diamonds runs a competing booth right next to TraxNYC in the Diamond District. But recently, TraxNYC posted a bunch of videos on Instagram with a customer who came in complaining about the quality of a piece that he recently bought. But the thing is, he apparently didn't even buy it from TraxNYC. He bought it from Akay Diamonds. But the reason he was going to TraxNYC about it was because, according to this customer, the guys at Akay Diamonds made it appear to the customer that they were TraxNYC when they sold him the chain. And what's worse, they allegedly represented that the gold chain they sold him was 14 karat gold when in fact it was something like 10 karat gold.
So this is the receipt from this disgusting company that pretends to be me, says they're TraxNYC, sells my customer a bracelet, rips them off on the gold. Shit, they're saying it's 14 karat gold. Well, we're gonna test this bracelet right now. Start the test. 10 karat gold. So did they say they were TraxNYC?
Yeah, he tried to portray, he tried to sell one of your products. He said that he ran out
Right.
one of your rings that you purchased.
Right, that we sell. So you came with a picture of TraxNYC.
Yep, I opened up the website for him.
And then he said he ran out, even though he has nothing to f***ing do with me other than to steal my f***ing customers all day long. These rats have done this over and over and over again, and I tolerated it. And now they f***ed them over on the carrot as well. Yo.
So TraxNYC goes back to his booth downstairs and gives the guy a refund of like $22,000 since the chain wasn't what the customer thought he was buying.
Pieces of okay, rip you off on this fucking thing. It turned out to be 9 karat gold, right? You had a check?
Yes.
So they're gonna be giving you $1,000 on top. Here's $22,000 for your fucking trouble. These fucking bum motherfuckers, bro. You get people in this exchange, people in this. Stop being greedy pieces of like. So I'm Trax. I want this. Coming up with a scheme every fucking time. Keep scheming, bro. 9 carat this, 2 carat that, this, that. Security what, bro? Bullshit, bro. Stop stealing. Gotta come up. I want my money.
So apparently immediately following that, TraxNYC decided to go and confront the guys at Akay Diamonds personally and very publicly.
Where's my f***ing money, motherfucker? Where's my f***ing money? Where's my money? I got this f***ing bracelet. Where's my f***ing money? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna f***ing do? Doc, motherfucker. You say VVS, I3, 14 karat, and you're using my name, you 6447. Yeah, 6447. Thief! You f***ing thief! Stop, take him. No. Get your hands off of me, bro. Get your hands off of me, bro. Calm down.
So at first he walks away, but then he comes back because I guess he's not satisfied with how this whole confrontation ended.
You little you
That was so unnecessary. No!
Oh, they wildin'.
Oh my god. What happened?
Oh, they wildin'.
Oh, get that girl. Yo, David, chill.
So it didn't take long before the police arrived during this incident and arrested Freddie and George Akay for assault. And meanwhile, TraxNYC later revealed from the hospital that one of the guys in the brawl actually tried to strangle him with his own chain that he was wearing.
In the end, they tried to kill me, strangle me with my own chain. To get out of this hospital. TraxNYC.com.
So obviously these guys were arrested and it sounds like there are charges against them for assault, although there are definitely allegations of fraud going on here as well. However, based on what I've seen so far, I wouldn't expect there to be fraud charges brought against them on top of these assault charges. But TraxNYC does have the ability to sue Freddie and George Akay civilly for some potential causes of action. And if the allegations by this customer are accurate, and if there are other customers who have had the same or similar experience, this could shape up into a much bigger problem for the Akay brothers. So let's talk about what TraxNYC could potentially sue the Akay brothers for, but first I have to thank this video sponsor. Strawberry.me connects you with certified career coaches who help you move forward in your career growth, whether that means landing a promotion, switching industries, improving confidence, or building better habits. They use a collaborative process rooted in proven methodologies like cognitive behavioral coaching, motivational interviewing, and goal-oriented models. All of that is to basically partner with you to gain clarity on your goals, to build a personalized plan, and to stay accountable so that you can actually follow through on that plan. And if you go to strawberry.me/legalbytes, you can claim a special offer to help you make all those improvements. After you sign up on their website, you go through a questionnaire that basically enables them to pair you up with the best possible coach. Then you have your first virtual coaching session where you talk through whatever it is you want to improve. Recently, ever since our latest move, I've really been feeling like a lot of my life has still been pretty chaotic. There's baby bites, there's the pets, there's the steep learning curve that comes with arriving in a whole new country to do things in a completely different way. And not to mention, of course, the fact that I am trying to run a business through YouTube. And so what I really needed was some non-judgmental objectivity on some of the things that I was really struggling with in order to help me see what I could do in order to get organized again. So I signed up with strawberry.me and I got paired with Marion. Going into it, I wasn't exactly sure what to expect, but after just one session, I walked out of it with a clear personalized plan and with steps that are designed to actually help me stick with it, which is the most important part. I honestly left that session feeling really energized, like, okay, this is something that can actually help put me in the right direction here. So if you'd like some help in making real progress on some of your goals, go to strawberry.me/legalbytes and claim your special offer on your coaching journey. And thanks again to strawberry.me for sponsoring this video. Okay, back to the video. So let's group these potential civil claims into two basic categories here. There are the causes of action arising out of the brawl that broke out at the Diamond District, and then there are the causes of action that are related to the underlying reason why TraxNYC confronted them in the first place. So let's first talk about the brawl-related ones. First, there's obviously common law assault and battery. Now, something to know about assault and battery is that although people often will use these two terms interchangeably, or rather use assault as kind of an umbrella term for assault and battery, they actually are slightly different from one another. You see, battery is when a person intentionally makes contact with another person and where that contact is either harmful or offensive. Assault, on the other hand, is where someone intentionally creates an apprehension of an imminent battery. So for example, where punching someone in the face is a battery, if someone were to fake out a punch where they just pull back just before making contact with the other person's face, that is more like an assault. Now, in this case, we have multiple examples of battery. For starters, there's the act of spitting on TraxNYC. Prior to this, the argument was totally verbal by all appearances, even if TraxNYC was screaming his head off at the Akays. And yeah, spitting counts as a battery. It's obviously offensive, and his spit clearly does touch TraxNYC's face and chest area. Anyway, then we have the other punches that were thrown, as well as this attempt to choke out TraxNYC with his chain necklace. All of these are harmful, and they're all caught on camera, and he went to the hospital afterwards, so there are almost definitely going to be clear records of his injuries as well as the hospital bills that can be compensated for. Okay, so that's assault and battery. After that, we also have a potential claim for intentional infliction of emotional distress, or IIED. To win on a claim of IIED, TraxNYC would need to show the following. First, he has to show that the Akays engaged in extreme and outrageous conduct. Second, he has to show that he suffered extreme emotional distress afterwards. Third, he has to show that the Akays caused that extreme emotional distress. In other words, that he didn't have emotional trauma that was caused by someone or something else. And finally, he has to show that not only did they cause it, but they intended, or at the very least were reckless about causing him that distress. Recklessness in this context is generally defined as when someone knows that what they're doing is going to have a substantial likelihood of causing that distress, and they willfully disregard that and continue their conduct anyway. Now, in my opinion, I think that there probably is enough here to state a claim for IIED in a lawsuit and to not have it be tossed out right away. But I don't necessarily think that it's a particularly strong claim for TraxNYC to bring. That's because, for one thing, in IIED, the emotional distress that is alleged needs to be truly extreme emotional distress. We're talking like maybe he needed therapy, maybe he had trouble sleeping over a long period of time afterwards, or other ways that this has impacted his overall mental health. And maybe this is just because what's been placed on social media since the brawl is placed through a particular filter and they want to make him look like a certain way. But I don't see much evidence that TraxNYC is actually fearing for his safety or that he's feeling humiliation over the assault or that he's dealing with any emotional trauma over it. Anyways, that's why, in my opinion, IIED probably isn't one of his strongest claims, but I wanted to mention it anyway just to highlight how arguably it's still something that could be gone after. But I also want to say that in the interest of full transparency, I do feel the need to point something out that might undercut both his IIED and assault and battery claims if he chooses to bring them. Now, since this whole thing erupted, TraxNYC has been talking with a bunch of other influencers about the whole brawl and about the alleged fraud and everything else, and even making funny collab spoofs.
Where's my f***ing money? Sucker, bro.
That's not, bro. That's Vinny's with a Y.
I think I know what a Vinny when I f***ing see one, bro.
Bro, I'm Vinny with the IE.
Yeah.
That's next door.
Right.
Where's the f***ing money, bro?
I don't.
That's next door. We're a merch store.
You're a merch store.
Yeah.
So give me the goddamn
Okay, take the merch. Take it. Here. Here. I'm sorry, just don't yell.
Bro, here, shove this up.
All right, you're in the wrong place, though.
And as part of that social media blitz, he had popular streamer Aiden Ross tour his office in the Diamond District. But when he was recounting the brawl, he said this.
Playing with me for f***ing years, and I warned them, don't do it, bro, because I don't have little bullets, bro. I only have nuclear weapons to deploy, bro.
Oh, wow.
They didn't want to take that one.
Why you come with your man?
Because that's how I do it. All I need is God on my side, and that's it, baby. Everything plays out, you know what I'm saying? See, but the thing is, I don't want them to look hurt. I want them to hurt me so we could do the real business and f them up, man. F all that other shit.
Yeah, we want that money.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, let them get their rage out. Let them do this. It was business, bro.
And he'll get that money
It had
out.
nothing to do with hands. It had nothing to do with nothing. For 4 years, they were playing with me in here, bro. For 4 years, they were playing with me in here. And I finally caught them red-handed.
Okay, now maybe he didn't mean it this way, but this statement could be understood by a reasonable, objective person to mean that he was intentionally goading them into committing an assault and battery against him. And so I think these words could potentially be used against him by the other side if they choose to argue that getting hit and strangled was the exact outcome he was looking for by confronting the Akays. And now that doesn't eliminate the fact that by all appearances, they did in fact lay hands on him. But in a civil case, I think that this is the kind of thing that could prevent a jury from telling the Akays to pay TraxNYC for the battery and any resulting harm. That's because they might look at TraxNYC and say, you're not exactly blameless here. You also have some unclean hands by your own admission. But now this statement by TraxNYC, in my opinion, shouldn't impact the other potential claims that he might have against the Akays related to the more like seedy alleged business activities. So let's talk about those. So the rest of the claims here are more to do with the fact that Akay Diamonds is allegedly using TraxNYC's name for some kind of an affiliation as a selling point with customers, and that at the same time, they're selling subpar products while using his name and trying to pass them off as something that is of higher quality than they really are. So obviously, if all of that is true and accurate and correct, that's something that can definitely hurt the goodwill of his business, which he's arguably spent years and years building and growing. So assuming the allegations are true, there's potentially a very real harm to his business. And so this can play out with a number of different causes of action. Number one, there's New York's unfair competition law. Specifically, New York's General Business Law Section 349 prohibits a business from using deceptive acts and practices. In order to win on this claim, TraxNYC would need to show the following. First, he has to show that the defendant committed a deceptive act or practice that was consumer-oriented. Second, he has to show that this deceptive act or practice was materially misleading to a reasonable consumer. Third, he has to prove that there was an injury that was suffered after this transaction. And fourth, he has to prove that this injury was a result of the deceptive act or practice. In other words, not the result of some other business dealing. So using TraxNYC's name to sell an inferior product than what they say they're selling to the consumer, we can probably check off most, if not all, of these boxes. There's obviously alleged deception. And then there's the fact that TraxNYC is known to stand out in the Diamond District because of his social media presence. He's obviously gained a huge following, like we talked about before, but this hasn't just meant viral fame for the sake of viral fame. This exposure through the years on social media is essentially what brings people to his business in the Diamond District. And there are others who have agreed that as a result, TraxNYC has become a draw for business in the Diamond District particularly for people who previously weren't familiar with the Diamond District. And now then there's the fact that in the Diamond District, all of these jewelers are in open air booths right next to one another. So if you figure that a good portion of TraxNYC's customers who are coming in looking for him are less familiar with how connected or disconnected these various businesses might be, there could be an argument that it's reasonable that someone might come in thinking that the booth right next to his is somehow affiliated with him. And so in my opinion, I do think that there is likely enough here that he can show that this is a deceptive act or practice that is materially misleading to a reasonable customer, and particularly one of his reasonable customers. And what's more, he has at least one example of a customer saying he was actually misled by Akay Diamonds. And if there are others out there, they could all be witnesses to testify that they were in fact deceived by them as well. Now, when it comes to this particular cause of action, typically it's consumers that have standing to sue the business, not a competitor like TraxNYC. So in other words, under typical circumstances, it would be this customer that would have standing to sue Akay Diamonds. But in this case, TraxNYC might still be able to sue if he can show two things. First, he has to show that the consumer was in fact the primary target of the deception. And second, he has to show that TraxNYC, the business, was directly harmed as a result of that consumer deception. And honestly, I think we have that here. At the outset, this customer said he bought from Akay Diamonds because he thought he was getting a TraxNYC piece from them. And he thought he was getting assured quality in the piece like he would expect from TraxNYC. But it turns out that the 14-karat gold necklace that he thought he was buying was more like 10-karat. So it looks like the consumer was targeted by an alleged deception here, and that there is a pretty material harm to the customer that is also alleged here after this deception was communicated directly to him by Akay Diamonds, also, of course, all alleged. And the way that TraxNYC shows that his business was harmed by this deception to the consumer is through the refund that he gave the customer, when the customer didn't even pay TraxNYC for the piece in the first place. Because essentially, to restore his name with the customer, TraxNYC gave his refund, so he's out like $21,000 or $22,000 for a transaction that he was never even a part of in the first place. So if my research is correct, he should be able to sue under this law to recover that loss. And here's where things could start to more significantly hurt Akay Diamonds. You see, there's a possibility that this customer isn't a one-off. And in fact, it looks like TraxNYC is accusing Akay Diamonds of essentially doing this for years now. So if TraxNYC collects enough customers who came back for refunds and saying that they thought they were getting a TraxNYC piece when they bought from the Akay Diamonds counter, he can refund all these people on behalf of TraxNYC and then sue Akay Diamonds under the statute to try to get compensated for it. And by the looks of it, TraxNYC may have already had this idea.
The most disgusting people you'll ever see in your life. It's 64 West 47th Street. Akay is the booth. We're gonna get our money back. $22,000 for me and for all the other customers they scammed. Pull up. We'll group together, we'll sue them, and we'll take their property. 64 West 47th Street. Don't let it slide.
Now, another claim that you might be thinking about is fraud. Because here we have an allegation that Akay Diamonds is misrepresenting themselves as having an affiliation with TraxNYC, and with that misrepresentation, they're inducing customers to buy from them. But the problem with a fraud claim is that a person to sue for that really would be the customer. Even with refunds, TraxNYC doesn't necessarily have standing to sue on behalf of the customers, because a material element that any plaintiff has to prove is that he justifiably relied on the defendant's lie about the product. And TraxNYC himself never relied on it. It was the customer who did. So fraud probably isn't going to lead to TraxNYC's success here. However, there are two more that he can possibly sue for, and I think these have some teeth. One of these is tortious interference with a prospective economic advantage. This is basically where a competitor knows that someone has a business relationship with a customer and intentionally interferes with it to basically swipe the customer out from under them. And TraxNYC would need to show 4 basic elements for that. First, he needs to show that there existed a business relationship between him and the customer. In this specific case, with the customer that we saw in the video, I think we can say that there was. He said that he had pulled up the TraxNYC website and that he was looking for something very specific from that website. And so I think that there is a tie-in here between him and TraxNYC. Second, TraxNYC has to show that Akay Diamonds knew of this relationship. And again, the customer said that he pulled up that website and showed it to the guys at the Akay Diamonds counter. So this means that they knew that he was looking for something specifically from TraxNYC, and They obviously know who TraxNYC is because he has a counter right next to them in a diamond district. So in my opinion, I think this element also would be met. Anyway, then the third element the TraxNYC has to show is that Akay Diamonds intentionally interfered with the business relationship, inducing some kind of breach or loss to TraxNYC. And here, that would be Akay Diamonds saying, yeah, this is a TraxNYC piece. We work with him all the time. We sell his stuff for him, et cetera, et cetera. And this would be where, in reality, they're just allegedly stealing the customer, so TraxNYC loses the sale. Anyway, then there's the final element that he would need to show, which is damages. First, there's the lost sale, and then on top of that, there's the refund that he paid to the customer. But also there's another layer of damages here that he may be able to get, which is reputational harm to his business. If TraxNYC starts picking up a reputation for selling poor quality products after passing them off as higher quality than reality, that's arguably a more sinister kind of harm because it's long-term damage to the overall brand. So yeah, in my opinion, I think that he could have a claim here. And that leads us to our final civil claim that I want to talk about, which is a trademark claim under the Lanham Act. Specifically, Section 43A of the Lanham Act, which is codified as 15 U.S. Code Section 1125, protects unregistered marks, trade dress, names, and personas. And basically the allegation here is that Akay Diamonds was promoting a false endorsement of the product by using TraxNYC's name, his reputation, and his brand identity to sell non-TraxNYC goods, all without his authorization. Now, there are a few things that he needs to show, but looking at this generally, I think that there is a bit of runway for him for this claim. First, he has to prove that he has standing to sue. And in my opinion, he should be able to do that by showing lost sales, refunds, reputational harm translating into economic loss, and diversion of customers. Anyway, second is that he has to prove that Akay Diamonds used his name, likeness, or association either in a commercial advertising or promotion, or in the sale or offering for sale of goods. And if what this customer said is true, it sounds like they did just that during the sale of this chain. Anyway, after that, the third element that TraxNYC has to prove is that there was a likelihood of confusion for the consumer. In other words, he has to show that customers believed that the product was either a TraxNYC product or somehow associated with TraxNYC or otherwise met his standards. And he has to show why confusion is likely. Personally, I think having a customer say he actually did get deceived by Akay Diamonds is a good place to start. But we can also go back to pointing out the way that the Diamond District is set up with these open air booths next to one another, and how there's a good chance that a lot of TraxNYC's customers coming in to look for him may be new to and unfamiliar with the Diamond District and how associations or lack thereof between these different booths might work. So this can be some pretty fertile ground for TraxNYC in my opinion. And the thing is, with this particular claim, the trademark claim, TraxNYC could be looking at a deeper well of remedies for himself. First, he can potentially get injunctive relief. Basically, he can have the court tell Akay Diamonds they're not allowed to pretend to be TraxNYC anymore. The court can also require them to use corrective statements and remove any language anywhere in their transaction that uses any reference to TraxNYC. Second, he can also get compensation for the profits that Akay Diamonds saw in sales where they falsely used TraxNYC's brand for affiliation. Third, he can also get his own actual damages. This is his lost sales, his lost customers, reputational harm that caused economic loss for him in his business, refunds that he made to the customers who were deceived, and any corrective advertising costs that he had to incur. And if the court finds that this case is an exceptional case of trademark infringement, TraxNYC's attorney's fees are also on the table. For this, the kinds of things that courts will look for is evidence of the defendant's willful infringement, any bad faith conduct by the defendant during litigation, and objectively unreasonable defenses. And not only that, but the court also has discretion to enhance the damages according to the circumstances of the case, so long as that enhancement doesn't amount to punitive damages. So basically, they would give extra compensatory damages so long as it's not like 3 to 5x the compensatory damages, because that could be considered punitive. Things that could support enhancement of these damages in this particular case are things like evidence of willful false endorsement, also a knowing exploitation of TraxNYC's reputation. You could also add repeated or egregious deception if there's evidence of that. And there's also inferior goods passed off as plaintiff associated. Now, of course, when I do an analysis like this, I don't want to create the impression that these are some kind of guarantees of success. But looking at this overall case, I do think that he has a shot at some real remedies through the court process, particularly if more customers come out through the woodwork and say that they were similarly deceived by Akay Diamonds and get refunds from him for it. But those are my thoughts. What do you think? Do you think it's worth it for TraxNYC to sue the Akay brothers and their company Akay Diamonds? Or should he just focus on the social media campaign to litigate it in the court of public opinion? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this or at least found it interesting or informative. And if you did, I would love it if you would hit the like button. It does help us with the YouTube algorithm gods. And if you're new here and you want to see more coverage of crazy cases and interesting legal topics, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can find out when the next video is out there. And if you're really enjoying the content and you want to know how to best support the channel, consider becoming a member of Byte Club. You can join either through YouTube memberships or by becoming a supporter on Patreon. Links to both are in the description below. Otherwise, see you in the next one.